right, we are live, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're here, 2025, baby.
So, Tom, I want to say first off, hi everyone, and welcome to 2025, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Jeremy McGraw. I'm a Windsor realtor and investor, and this is my colleague.
Tom McCormick. What's going on, guys?
Yeah, basically, we're thrilled to kick off the year with you and what promises to be another interesting chapter for real estate and investing in general. To start things off, we'll be sharing our 2024 recap, what basically all the pros, the cons, and everything in between. For myself, it'll be both as a realtor and investor, and then Tom, basically on the investment side as well. We'll talk about, as I mentioned, what worked, what didn't work, and what lessons we learned, and what things we'll be taking into us with 2025. We'll be talking, Tom will be talking actually about his investment journey. We'll be talking about a sneak peek into our goals and strategies. And then
Mm-hmm.
finally, possibly some New Year's resolutions.
Everyone loves the resolutions. Well, actually, some don't, some do. It
It's
really depends. Depends on how motivated you might be.
it
But
is.
yeah, I guess from there, too, we got a bunch of articles that we're going to cover as well that Jeremy's talking about. And as usual, local news, a little bit of news in Canada specifically, and everything kind of related to real estate and in between. And it's going to be an interesting session today. And then, as always, let's make 2025 the best year ever. And let's get into this thing, hey?
Oh, absolutely. So, Tom, I mentioned that you're going to be talking about your investment journey and how it shaped up this year, last year.
Mm-hmm.
How was that for you? How was 2024?
It was. It had like not to be cliche, but it had its highs and lows. Honestly, it was. It, it 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 started off pretty poorly. It was an
Oh,
interesting time, and the reason being, I had a project, and this project was a flip, and the problem was that this flip we kind of we had a couple things actually happen. We didn't time the market correctly because it was starting to kind of dip right back in the end of 2023, and so we were coming into 2024 on the heels of that. We ran into some contractor issues as well. That was partially my
it
fault,
always happens.
partially yeah. It's you. I was just saying this the other day. You have to hire fast, and you also have to fire fast. And the reason being is if something's not going well or something is just taking too long or just something's not jiving, you have to be able to pivot and make the change as soon as you can because you want to be more proactive and not reactive. Because if you just sit back and wait and say, I hope things get better, it's not going to work out. So we had to actually get a whole new contractor to kind of solve this mess. And actually, this property Jeremy knows all about because I was consulting him, like, hey, what do you think I should do for this and this? Because Jeremy is honestly the flipping expert. I'm more the Padawan learner trying to kind of get to that level. But
No,
this maybe I'm being too modest,
no.
but I no seriously I definitely learned a lot on this one, and I also learned to trust my gut a bit better because if I would have done that, I probably would have been able to actually get a better asking price in the first place, and been able to kind of coordinate things better in terms of the project and making the budget fit. So starting out, that was a little rough, but and on the positive side, got a couple properties in the U.S. as well, so kind of offset the losses there. But I think one of the biggest wins, and not to get cheesy, is that this that we're doing right now, the Windsor re-up, the All Things REI, we've been a lot more consistent as of last year. We had some successful events, three or four like that really were great, and Jeremy, you and I have been hosting this now for over a year. I think this
I know.
officially is. I was looking back. I think this is our 16th kind of like Windsor Re-Up Live or All Things REI Live,
Yeah,
um, and we plan to do a lot more of these too. So uh,
I want to say we started like we did one or two in 2023, but
yep,
then we stopped and it was
yeah, we were kind of
sat
on and
back
off.
and we
Yeah.
chatted for a bit. And that's when we went with the whole new branding.
Hmm.
In 2024, we rebranded with a whole new momentum, right? And we had a plan in action. We had the biggest thing for as once again, this is a business for us as well. I mean, this we kind of treat it more as a hobby, but at the end of the day, it is a business. I
Yeah,
am a
it's a brand.
realtor
Yeah.
and we are investors. And the big thing for us is basically sharing our knowledge. But there's people listening to our other investors, wholesalers, and we kind of use it as a platform to get us deals. But we also could potentially give you some deals where we can make some
Hmm.
money. So it's a business at the end of the day, and we had to figure out our not just our brand, but who we our identity for the not just the podcast, but the brand as a whole.
Absolutely. And I think we go back to what you were saying also. We actually finally sat down and made a plan. So that maybe kind of ropes in a little bit into your New Year's resolutions, your goals. But if you have a
Yeah,
plan in place, you can actually achieve some great things. And even if it seems like a big task or it's insurmountable, not that this was so of like a monumental task, but if you have something big, you just need to chip away at it a little bit by bit. And so that's what we did. We just took down the branding, we took down this, we took down that, and we actually put a schedule in place too, and kind of had dates set, saying, okay, we have to do this by this date, and that allowed us to actually have a direction to go. Because beforehand, just like with any like real estate products that I had as in the past too that didn't go well, it's because there wasn't a good plan in place beforehand. So
mhm.
kudos to us, I guess, and thanks Jeremy too,
Yes.
because we were able to kind of sort that out. So I think that was one of my highlights for 2024. And then um, also I'd say too, what I was really happy about is I made a better effort and actually just meeting more people. So um, I think that was what really uh, helped open some doors to just networking and meeting people like that. So how about you, Jeremy? What do you think?
2024, what a year. Where do I start? I guess. Funny enough, I believe yesterday I posted a bunch of things. I don't know if you caught that on my Instagram, but
I did.
I went
Yeah.
through a little flip book of everything I did. So I don't know if it's still up. It probably isn't at this point because the stories are only good for about 24
If you
hours.
haven't, follow
However,
Jeremy and myself on Instagram and Facebook and all that jazz.
at Jeremy from Windsor.
And then
But
Tom McCormick,
basically
but All
here,
Things
oh,
REI
sorry.
too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off and
Oh,
steal your
yes.
thunder.
No, no. But so here's what I kind of did there. So I went through everything and it was a really good kind of way for me just to kind of take a look at each property because once you kind of I mean if you do one or two, you kind of have in the back of your brain. This last year was a little bit of a slow uh churn for me, I guess, in purchasing and selling because we started the year off. I had a duplex in downtown Windsor.
Hmm.
I picked that one up in late 2023, sold it at the beginning of 2024. I made a good amount of money. We picked up a duplex for 235. And once again, as you mentioned, it was just contractor. So I used a contractor for the first time. Very, very good. Would have used him again. However, he transitioned into another career. He had got a job at the battery plant, making twice as much money as what I was willing to spend.
It's kind of hard to
So,
beat that.
but he was also learning as he was going too. Originally, there was a crew of three people. We dropped down to one. The 3 month project turned into like a 6 month project.
Mhm.
So it was a little bit longer than I wanted to. And with anything along the lines of the projects I do, there's always going to be some things that can go wrong because I try to buy the worst, and that's how I get the best returns on my investments. Too many people want those lipstick on a pig properties. And I will tell you something right now, the real estate market, everyone's talking about that. It's down. It is down. But the right price properties and the properties that require little to no work, if they are priced right, will sell quickly
They
and
just
for
snap
usually
them up
over
right away.
asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, any first time home buyer or a retiree or something like that will buy a reasonably priced property, right? So the to give you an idea, that duplex, I would have loved to sell it for more money. I think I sold it for like 425. It was done right up. It was a two bedroom on the main, no, three bedroom on the main floor, one bath. Upstairs was a two bed, one bath. I could probably sell that in today's market for probably 475, I think at least.
Well,
It had a two-car garage as well. The lot was small, but it was a decent location. So I kind of lost out on some potential earnings down the road. But you got to remember there's carrying costs. And a lot of people are like, oh, just hold it. But when you have a few $1,000s a month between a mortgage, insurance, taxes, utilities, it adds up. And at what point can you just toss that property away, grab those funds back, and then utilize it to purchase a new property. In this case here, I bought a 2-story. Remember Lozon? I bought that one in
That
February.
was a beauty.
Yeah, so the money just rolled into that. So I bought that property. It was a 4 bed, 2.5 bath, 2-story home on a 100 by 200 foot lot. It was a beautiful property. Part of me wishes I would have done a little bit more to it and then moved in myself, but that wasn't the location for me. However, I picked that for 475. The market did beat me up a bit, and I didn't, and I it was my first real foray into going into nicer, like above average, because the average price of a house right now in Windsor is like 570. So
Hmm.
I was well above that, and we sold it for 650. Well, I said I meant I sold it for 650. I always group my contractors in because they are the ones that make me look good and basically get the job done. And if I fail, they kind of fail too. So we always try to do it together. Um, and that one right there, I didn't make very much money after all said and done. Funny enough, I like a week after I sold it, um, one of the people I showed it to offered me like 25 grand more, and it would have been no commission because I would have been able to double end it. I lost it like $43,000 in a week, and it
Wow.
sucks. But you got to just move on. And that's kind of little things you've kind of learned because I was holding that property. It's not like one of those things I was in and out. I had that property on the market for like 3 months. It was sitting,
Yep.
multiple open houses, multiple showings, driving there. And, a $475,000 property plus my renovations, it's a lot of money. And it's my own money without partners.
Hmm.
From there, what did I do after that one? I picked up a few properties since then. Um, I picked up a one in Ruthven. A wholesaler had it, and
Oh
obviously no
yeah.
one
Yeah, that
really
was a
wanted to
unique
go to.
one.
Yeah, you know what? No one really wanted to go to. It was like in between Kingsville and Leamington. No one really wanted to go. I didn't even want to go there. I went there 3 times. In between showing the property and like driving there and back, it took about almost 2 hours of my day. And then I had to not only that, that was my contractors. They didn't want to drive up that way either. So I looked at it, I picked it up for 195 because no one wanted it. There was like fleas in that property. The furnace and air conditioner didn't work, so I replaced that. But um, it was heated by gas, and there was no one could find the gas line, so I would need a whole new gas line. So I just sold it as is. I let every investor know, and I actually double ended that one. However, I didn't want to take up that much time of my life, so I actually gave it to one of my colleagues in my office to show, and we split the commission.
Nice.
So she ended up getting paid pretty well in that deal for showing it once, right? But I ended up making like I think 40,000 on that deal, which is not bad. And that was like a
That's
month.
not bad for just like, yeah,
No. So I made more money on that one than I did on my
your main flip.
2-story
Yeah,
Lozon, yeah. And
man.
I think I only put like 10 grand into that property. But
And
long
remind
story
people
short,
too what will you never do again, or what was your kind of your lessons learned from Lozon? Because I think me and you are the same boat for both your flip and my flip.
oh,
Yeah.
great question. Honestly, here's the thing. With Lozon, it was my first, as I mentioned, it was my first time going into, I would say, a mid-level or above mid-level, like that seven. If 100% would be $1 million house, this was realistically a 75% property,
Hmm.
which would be a seven. It should have been a $700,000 home all day long. The one thing I learned is I should have booked a bunch of showings that were $700,000 to $800,000, seen what they were doing. I would
Hmm.
have changed the flooring on the tiles because I was using the 2x2, which is actually in style right now. But I was going with that white with the gray vein that
Yeah, the
everyone does.
Carrera kind of.
It's overused, overplayed. I was doing the open houses and I was telling everybody, hit me with what works, what doesn't work.
Hmm.
And they said, hey, this has been overplayed, right? The white shaker cabinets hold pretty well, but I think it could have done a little bit better with maybe a different type of flooring.
Hmm.
I should have put appliances in, but the issue is, I was on a $700,000 house. How much do you spend on appliances? Because you're not going to just put the stuff that you would put into a rental. You're going to put nice stuff in there.
Yeah, but
So are we
you don't
talking a
go.
$2,000
Yeah.
fridge
How
or a
nice you go.
$1,500?
Right.
Why spend $10,000 on appliances? Because there's two kitchens in that house.
Could you
Um,
consider ever? This is just maybe a side tangent. I know we're going off topic a bit. Could you almost say, hey, I'll buy it and you can rope it into your mortgage or something like that.
I did that.
Oh, did you?
I
Okay.
was willing to do everything to get this deal sold.
Right on.
So I told him, I said, you let me know what the appliances is. We can figure this out. Obviously,
Hmm.
the price would be
Yeah,
reflective
you
of that.
change the price a little bit, massage it.
So, but I had no problem with that, honestly. And I told every realtor and every person that came to see it, um, I would have done more accent walls, especially in the bedroom and the living room. And this is something actually I put into Drouillard, which we'll talk about maybe later on,
Hmm.
because I think and it makes that much more of a difference. So if you know what most of my properties, actually, I use the same flooring in the living room of and in Drouillard for the vinyl, which was a Mohawk, kind of a brownish color.
Yeah, kind of almost like what's in your
It
room
is
in your office right there.
yeah, this is a beautiful white oak hardwood floors though. Don't get them mixed up. So, anyways, long story short, I just basically did a copy and paste and kind of learned from my mistakes there. With Drouillard, obviously, I went a little bit higher end. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have, and I'll talk about that in a second. But going back to Lowe's on there, things I've learned basically at that type of property, make sure I stay on my contractors because they
Hmm.
did a good job, but they're used to me working with them on like three to $400,000 properties. And there were some things that were overlooked and the quality was overlooked.
Oh yeah.
And the quality of like the sanding should have been a lot better. The paint job should have been a lot better. And people noticed it and called me out on it right away.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, Besides that, I think it was just more or less just pushing the envelope and trying to get it sold as quick as possible.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear
So
you. That's interesting price point. But back to your overall year then. So did you have that was kind of maybe the Lozon was the low. What would you say was the high
yeah, I mean,
for your year? What was the high?
I bought a Drouillard. I bought a property on Queen Street in the West End. Queen's gonna be a flip. I'm gonna do really well on that one. I'm super excited for it. Drouillard, wrapping that one up. That'll be a great refinance. So I'm gonna have I think a great start next month with refinancing.
Hmm.
I'm very excited about that. And then today I viewed a duplex. And then tomorrow I view a duplex. Both under $300,000, both
Not
one
bad.
needing a tremendous amount of work with
Hmm.
a tremendous upside, vacant duplex. And then the other one is a tenanted duplex or tenanted 2 units kind of thing, right? But potentially some play there as well. So I'm always looking for opportunities there. How the rest of my year was basically anxiety and loss of sleep owning Lozon, but the rest of the year was great. As a realtor, I had a phenomenal year. I think a lot of realtors were a bit nervous taking on second jobs.
Hmm.
That was the market was slow. I had a great year. It wasn't my best year, but it was definitely a very good year. I was super happy. And I learned from 2023. I had a slow 2023 and I kicked my butt and I told myself I need to work twice as hard. So I did that. I ended the year off with a couple of amazing deals. I had a great lease for one of my clients who was a repeat client of mine. It was a
Hmm.
lease, but you know what? They got a beautiful home. And then I sold a colleague of ours, acquaintance of ours
Oh yeah.
there.
Yep.
He had a 7 unit building in East Windsor, and we sold that for 1.16, almost like 1.17. And to give you an idea, with a mixed use multifamily right now, nothing's selling. But guess what? We sold it.
You made it work. We'll
We
actually
made it
have to
work.
have
So
him on. We're gonna actually have him on the All Things REI podcast probably around the February timeframe. So be on the lookout for that one. That's gonna be pretty sweet.
I think so as
Yeah.
well because he's got a cool portfolio for
Hmm.
sure. So what basically I guess in the sense of what I would want to take into 2025
Hmm.
is obviously the mistakes I've learned in 2024 with Lozon. So I don't plan on stopping flipping. I've had so many people go, "Oh, well, what about the flipping tax?" If I have to pay taxes, I made money, right?
Right.
Just understand that if you make or take profits on anything,
Hmm.
make sure you have that for your taxes, right? But the goal of the game is just not to buy real estate and hold it, and then you want to be able to have place. You want to be able to put your money in and get your money out as quick as possible, whether or not you're flipping or if you're not buy and hold it, you want to be able to refinance that sucker out as quick as possible.
Hmm.
So, for example, that's why you want to buy and make sure you have a good margin so that the worst case scenario is you have a few $1,000 left in the deal, but you can be able to pull your money out plus renovations as quick as possible so that you could redeploy that amount of money into an additional property. Because trust me, once the rain starts pouring, it pours hard and deals will be coming out.
And deals will definitely be coming out, and the market's going to get a lot hotter in Windsor too. We're going to jump to some articles, and you're going to see
Okay.
that
I'm excited.
that Windsor's on the up. We always say it, and we love this city, but it's true.
Yeah. So
So
what's our first article, Tom?
I think we want to go into and this one's one you found, the top 10 housing predictions for 2025 by
Top
McLean's. So I'm going to share my screen here,
10.
guys.
Oh, I like this. Okay.
All right. And so the
Number
first
one.
one's not the most glamorous. It's more doom and gloom, but it's about Toronto's
Let's talk
housing
about it.
condo market. But it's no surprise, right? It's no surprise because the condo market it's a shoebox, and people are realizing that they want more space. And I think there's been so many that have been overbuilt. Like just there's so much of the same right now that it's just sitting. And uh, yeah, I think there's enough to say about that.
So yeah, I mean the Toronto, here's the thing. The average square footage of a condo in Toronto is around like mid sixes, and that's the average. To
Hmm.
give you an idea, the condo I'm in right now is almost 1,400 square feet. So it's a big
It's
difference. I
way
mean,
more spacious.
you can't raise a family in a 600 square foot shoebox, and that's the average. So imagine
Hmm.
that there's for that to be the average, there is a tremendous amount of condos that are under that. So 500, 400, we
Good
have the
point.
micro condos, right? So they're bachelors, right? They're small. Like even I've seen 2 bedroom units be 600 square feet. To give you an idea, my first condo I lived in I thought it was a shoebox, and that was a 1 bed, 1 bath, and that was like 550. And I was tight on that. So I can only imagine living in something like a 2 bedroom, the same square footage. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, and at that
So
price point too that they're selling, you might as well just save up a little bit more and just buy an actual house. Like
we can in Toronto, right? That's
I
why they're so expensive because 600, I say $750,000 for a 2 bedroom condo, which is probably the going rates. I was seeing brand new condos and they were like 400 square feet. Your like living room was like you can take 2 steps and be in either your bathroom or your kitchen from your couch. Like, what's the point of like that's a shoot? They call it dog crate condos, right? So no
yeah,
matter why, no one wants to buy them because it's not what the people want anymore. And that's the one thing as an investor and as a builder, you have to adjust to what
the
your
market demands.
clients, the market demands.
Hmm.
So, for example, the houses in Toronto, if anything, I would say detached houses will probably continue to go up. I don't think they're going to plummet. I think we've hit the bottom for detached houses.
Hmm.
Condos in Windsor, I can see them going up as well. The reason being, the square footage reflects what you want. For example, you want a shoebox 600 square foot condo like I was living in, you could probably get one in the building I was living in, which is Riverside Drive on the water on the waterfront pretty much with a view
Hmm.
for probably like 300 grand, which is cheap. You're not going to get that anywhere else. And then if you want a 2 bedroom, like you can go up to like 800 square feet, probably won't be much more, maybe under $400,000. And then for something like this, these things will range anywhere from, depending on the building, 400 to, we're actually, my office is building them right now. We have a new condominium coming up in Walkerville with water views for 799, all luxury underground parking.
Speaking of luxury,
So
actually, it's interesting that in Windsor, condos are more kind of seen as a luxury item, not necessarily just a little rental kind of thing like in Toronto, where they're a dime a
well,
dozen.
here's the thing. My condo building is nine floors of units. 10th floor is pool, gym, billiards room,
Hmm.
party room, right? We have two floors of underground parking. 56 units. In Toronto, that would be 56 stories
Yeah,
with like 1,000 units, right?
yeah.
So it's a difference, right? That's the issue is that you can have five, like for example, I'm in what's called the condo row
Hmm.
from Paulette Riverside Drive there. There's, I think we have one, two, three, four, five, six condos, and then two like plus two old age homes. Um, there's probably less than like a few hundred units. So one building in Toronto would have been like 1,000, right? So the fact of it is just the amount of
Yeah, they're a
sheer
dime a dozen in
units.
Toronto. They're kind of unique and still
Yeah,
novel over here. Yeah.
absolutely. And you gotta remember too, a lot of them are just put up so quickly and they're all being pretty much bought to be rentals. So you half the time you have these, and we had this actually happen in some places like in LaSalle where
Hmm.
the brand new condos, they weren't selling as fast. So I had a friend move into a condo and she was telling me that for almost a month, her floor was a ghost town because she was like one of four people living in the building.
Oh, wow.
Now, obviously, they've rented out, right? But
At the time, yeah.
yeah.
I think,
So the next what?
oh, no, no issues there. I think, yeah, the next one, we need to talk about that too. And you kind of alluded to that as well. Just in general, there is a flipping tax, but I think BC is now
Yeah,
implementing like an additional
a
provincial.
2 year one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the CRA treats anything you own in Canada. It's a 1 year flipping tax, and if you're in a corporation, it won't matter anyways because it's pretty much into effect because it's business
It's
tax.
business income.
Um,
Yep.
yeah. So pretty much nothing really changes for me and how I do my business. But for BC, obviously this could affect your taxes there, and that's 2 years.
Hmm.
So I some people flip their personal name. I flipped my personal name. Would I probably do going forward? Maybe, maybe not. It depends. You gotta talk to your accountant about that, right? So these are kind of accountant questions, but it's basically going to be if you own anything for less than 730 days in BC,
You're
you'll
being
be
slapped with some more
taxed.
tax.
Sellers who've owned their properties for 365 days or less will be taxed at 20% of the income of their sale, with the rate gradually decreasing to zero by the 2 year mark.
Oh, so it's like a gradual. So maybe if you sold at day 600, it's not like the full spectrum. It's like a graduated tax.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And then interest rates will keep dropping.
Yeah,
So
that makes
basically,
sense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's very, once again, we want to say variable. 5 year overnight. Give me 1 second. So the overnight lending rate is 3 point, was it
3.5 ish,
yeah, primary now. Yeah, 3.25 for
or even a
that.
little less. Okay.
Yeah, 5 year. So we want the 5 year Canada bond right now, and that's at 2.57. So the difference is like, I think by point 0.3 right now on the variable. So there's talks about the variable going down. I'm not a mortgage agent. Once again, consult a mortgage agent on this one, but it sounds like if the mortgage rates keep going down on the variable side, which is going to be the overnight rate,
Hmm.
it might make sense for investors to go into the variable and then ride that wave down. We seem to be hovering around that 3% right now on the fixed rate, and I don't foresee the fixed rate changing.
Yeah.
That's
If
just my
anything, it ticked
thoughts.
up even ever so slightly. They're saying, but
Yeah, it's
nothing
been
to really
going
worry
from
about.
2.75 to 3.25. That's kind of like that point 0.5
Hmm.
variable that we've been going up and down on. But we'll just call it right in the middle at 3%. I don't think it's going to go change too much besides maybe a 0.25 in each direction
No.
for the fixed rates.
Speaking
Um,
of speaking of rates and all that stuff, number four, the exchange rates,
Oh,
because all the U.S. They're predicting the U.S. firms are going to start pouring money into Canada, and oops,
Blackstone.
that makes
Yep.
sense. Or Blackstone, BlackRock, all those guys, and with that
Yeah. So
dollar right now, I
Blackstone.
think the dollar what is like $1.44, $1.45 right now for every Canadian dollar, which is quite the swing from even being $1.30 not too many months ago. So their money's going to go a lot further, and they're going to be buying up a lot of property and investing here. Right, at least we hope so, because that's actually going to stimulate our economy as well, and we need that right now since we're in somewhat of a recession.
I don't care who comes in. Investors are investors, and people keep making big things about this. They purchased Tricon, which is a big builder. They did some
Hmm.
really nice properties off the 401. Um, some that when I used to live in Toronto, I really liked, but they bought that for 3.5 billion. That was BlackRock, and then that was in May. And then meanwhile, Texas-based developer Hines LLP is planning to invest up to $2 billion in land for large-scale 6 to 8 story apartment buildings in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal.
Hmm.
Um, it's interested in reviving projects that have been stalled in the past few years by high interest rates and construction costs. So pretty much they're bringing American money, probably not even have to fund it through the banks, right? They have cash and they'll
They
be
got
able to
private
come in
equity.
there and dominate. Yeah,
Yep.
they're going to be able to blow out the people like you and me. But to be honest with you, they're not looking at properties like us. I mean, to be honest with you, anything like these are guys that are building 50 something unit story. Like one guy's doing 8 story buildings, but how big there's going to be
They
multiple
go much
units on
bigger.
those.
Yeah, like those
Yeah, it's a
Graybrook
different scale.
or Brookstone people as well. They'll build condos all day long. But they need to come to Windsor.
Number
they're
5.
they're only focusing on Toronto and all those. Yeah, number five. That's interesting. How about you jump into that one?
Labor shortages will cause construction delays. The next decade will be a challenge for Canada's battered construction. Do you want to put these? Can you share to your?
I can. I can share your screen too. One second, guys. As we do this live on the fly.
So while he does that, I'll continue to go on here. That was predictable. We lose 263,000 construction workers between now and 2023. Sorry, 2033. Making things worse, only about 2% of Canada's newcomers over the past decade have skilled trades qualifications. Domestically, young Canadians are also increasingly choosing white collar careers over blue collar ones, and this will put the brakes on Canada's ambitious goal of building 3.9 million homes nationwide by 2031.
Hmm.
What do I see for this is we are a land of opportunity, and we are going to go based off of, especially if we're entering a recession or kind of coming close into jobs people will do, and people will do anything to make a dollar.
Hmm.
So will we see people go into the trades? Absolutely, because at the end of the day, um, you don't have to go to 4 or 6 or plus years of schooling, and you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars a year. You can go to you can join the union and go through union schools. You can go to to a college like St. Clair College in Windsor, and then you can basically do a 2 year program, get probably into a job that has a pension and benefits, which most jobs, these white collar jobs, are not going to have. And to be honest with you, I mean, to give you an idea, I was talking to a friend that works at like Fords and Chryslers. They're
Hmm.
making close to $50 an hour now.
Yeah. Isn't that
So
nuts?
just,
Yeah,
which
just
is,
for
so
working
think
the
about
line.
that with a pension, with benefits, it's a good job. It's $100,000 a year career now. So, with maybe some overtime, right? So these are definitely some careers that I think that will continue onwards. And with us losing that much construction too, prices are going to start to go back up. We saw this during COVID when we didn't have enough construction workers.
Hmm.
People were charging wherever they wanted because they knew it was them or nothing. Now, when the market dropped a bit, obviously builders backed out. But when the builders start to build again, people like myself and yourself, we have to have our in-house people because our contractors
You're gonna
are
get
just going to
scooped
go
up.
to yeah, they're going to get scooped up and they're going to go to the person who pays the most amount of money, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
it's gonna be tight for sure. But one thing I do like is that at least in Ontario, and I think we talked about this previously, Doug Ford's trying to streamline the process for people to get into trades and to kind of promote that a bit more in schools. So that's huge. And I think if we
it
do
should be.
that,
It's a great way to make a
it
lot of money
yep,
with low amount of time.
absolutely.
Ooh,
Numbers
wow, number
number
6.
six.
Oh, First Nations will be the big new developers. And I've actually, so funny enough, a lot of those they were known for the longest time for building casinos and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
I've noticed some of these casinos, they have condominium projects on them now. They have hotels on them. In this case right here, the country's most impressive project is, I'm not even gonna say the word, I can't say it. A cluster of 11 skyscrapers in Vancouver with 6,000 residential units developed on land belonging to the Squamish Nation. The first 3 towers will be done in 2025. The Attainable Housing Initiative, a BC government project on Indigenous land, will deliver 2,600 homes with 40% subsidies starting in the spring. And then on the prairies, the Southern Chiefs organization representing 33 Anishinaabe and Dakota nations will develop a residential tower in the middle of downtown Winnipeg. I hope I didn't. I remember from schooling we learned about some of this stuff there, but I'm not going
It's
to say
tough.
that.
It's a tongue
Yeah.
twister, but that's
So
kind of surprising. I don't really, at least you don't really hear about too much of the Aboriginals in the news, too much of the First Nations.
so I
It's
remember my when my brother was working out west because he used to be in Saskatchewan and Alberta
hmm.
and just different areas there. He mentioned there was in the iron workers and the building stuff, there's a lot of natives,
Hmm.
and it seems like they're starting to build, especially on their own land because they have quite a bit of it that was sitting right.
Honestly, good
And
for
this is a
them
great.
because
Why not? This is a great
sometimes you
idea.
hear of the First Nations and you think, oh man, they're not doing so hot. They're not trying to do things, but this is actually good. They're actually
I
bootstrapping it
mean, they
themselves.
they have some great business. Like some of them are just so well run, right? I mean, obviously, once again, it's great to see some initiatives going on there, and they're building, like I said, 6,000 units. It's
That's
massive,
huge.
massive.
We need the houses. Go for it.
Number seven,
Yeah,
more
no,
millennials and Gen Zs will buy homes. Do you want to take this one?
sure. Yeah, I guess this is no real surprise because as the boomers age out and they sell homes, uh, us millennials and then the Gen Zs, we've been doing is, well, most people have been saving up their money, right? Living in their parents' basements or or just getting into their careers. So we are amassing more funds and money. So I think this is a natural progression, not just because interest rates are going down, but because we're all getting older. Because I think me and you, we're near the tail end of the millennials, and so if you think about that, the spread of millennials, they're already in their 40s, so it's kind of like a, of course, no brainer that they've hopefully by then they've saved enough. If not, maybe they need a bit of financial education then.
Well, the Gen Zs are probably making more than us combined with all
Yeah,
these new fart coins and different things
don't even get me started on the
on the
crypto
meme
and
coins.
yeah, I've seen like I just think it's wild that there's Dogecoin, right? And then all of a sudden they have the Department of
Doge,
something
yeah.
efficient, government efficiency, Doge, and then that just because of that, it shot up the sky, like prices to the moon. Oh,
And
it's
this is
wild.
interesting thing too to talk about because there's going to be there has been so many self-made millionaires through cryptocurrency, and a lot of them are millennials and Gen Zs.
Hmm.
And basically, I think that especially there's talks about current. I don't know. I'm not a big. I guess I invest,
Do you
but at the end
dabble?
of the
Oh,
day, I
okay.
dabble a bit. Yeah, I've got a decent portfolio and it's done very, very well for me, right? But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, there's people that are pumping these things up and they're talking about a
Pump
new
and dump.
season it's looking very bullish. So if it does go into this bullish territory again and prices are going to go back up or creep new highs, there's going to be a lot more millionaires made. And those people will, in fact, buy houses. Gen Zs, especially being younger, and especially with a lot more money, they're more susceptible to the culture of spending their, I guess, their wealth, right? In the
Yeah,
sense of flashy cars. Like, I mean, I
consumerism,
go and,
kind of
for
flexing.
example, I just recently started car shopping myself, and I'm watching videos where a 19-year-old kid's talking about buying his first Lamborghini. And it's like, okay, well, I'm 30, I'm going to be 32 in March, and I don't have one yet. So it's fun that I get to
Yeah, you
watch
say
some
yeah.
kid go,
There you
yeah, I
go.
made a bunch of money off of TikTok and YouTube, and then I dabble in cryptocurrencies, and now I bought a Lamborghini cash. It's great.
The internet's a gold
So,
rush, baby. It's
you know
crazy.
what? As a realtor, I'm hoping a lot of people in Windsor make a lot of money on crypto and
Oh, of
buy a
course.
property through me.
Anyone
Number
that makes money
eight.
around us, it's a good thing because it raises all ships, right? If you
Yeah. So
succeed,
number
we all
seven
succeed.
was great, and then listen to this. Number eight, a wave of mortgage defaults is coming.
And that's why
But
the
I mean,
millennials are going
here's
to
the
buy it
thing:
up, right?
you locked in for a mortgage back in 2021 at 1.59%. Probably over leverage. These are for people that over leverage themselves. But I will
Hmm.
tell you something. Um, People were getting foreclosed on houses back in 2015, 14, 13, 10, 9, when house prices were like 10. Like, for example, I saw a house, one of the properties that I recently listed, sold like 10 years ago for like $35,000,
Wow.
right? So how do you get foreclosed on a $35,000 house? They did in Windsor. So I don't think that ever changed. I think that in this case here, the going from the rates of one point, let's say, 1 or 2% mortgages to 4%. But here's the thing. I mean, if the mortgage rates are going to still continue to go down on a variable, we probably aren't going to be that much different. This the issue is those people that maybe over leverage themselves by buying investment properties, thinking that the prices are only going to go up, and they were gambling that, hey, I'll lose money on this house every year off my
Yeah, they'll
mortgage,
eat it
but
a little
the
bit.
house prices will go up. That's not real estate investing. I told a few investors, and I've lost clientele or potential clients because I
Hmm.
told them, I said, you're not an investor. Like, this is not a good idea. And
It's
people
good to be a
just,
straight shooter and tell it how it is because sometimes people just
it
they
hurts the
need to
bank
be told,
sometimes
right?
for me.
Yeah.
You just because you know what? Here's the thing. I used to sell cell phones back in the day before I got into real estate back then. And when my boss told me, because a lot of these guys, we used to pump out the Android phones because they were so much cheaper than iPhones.
Hmm.
And a few people were like, "Hey, You should buy an Android phone. I have an iPhone myself. I would never go to Android because obviously the green text,
Oh,
obviously
come
one of
on. I
those
give you the
things,
green
right?
text all the time.
Oh, I know, right? So, but basically, here's the thing. We were telling them, hey, you could save all this money. You don't have to spend, $1,000 on the price of a phone. But here's what my boss told me. He goes, if they come in wanting an iPhone, they're gonna walk. If you're not gonna sell them that iPhone, they're gonna find someone who will. Because if they want it, there's a
They're
very,
going to find
very
enough
slim
way.
chance you might be able to flip them over to something else. But if they're coming in wanting something, just sell it to them. But the
Mm,
issue is that's an iPhone. Anyone can walk away from an iPhone. It's a what $1,500 phone now. Try walking away from like $1,500, not even a down payment. We're putting $5,000 down minimum as a deposit now, right?
right.
So when you're buying the most expensive investment of your life, which is a house, which could be several $100,000, you should be looking at, oh, is this thing going to go up another 100 grand, or is it going to go up $10,000 a month like the market was doing? If you can't work off of basic fundamentals, it's not a good product. It's nothing good
Mm.
because it's called a rug pull, right? I mean, once again, cryptocurrencies, you don't buy with no fundamentals.
You need that white paper,
So
baby. But I like
yes,
that
of
though.
course.
You have your integrity, and you can actually sleep easy at night because you didn't sell some snake oil to some of your clients, and
And
maybe
I've
hopefully you protected some too, and then
And
kept
here's the
them
thing,
from
I
it.
think we both slept good at night because I know that looking at my portfolio, when the market was going down, I didn't buy off of speculation. I bought based off numbers. Did I win every single property? No, I did not. I probably rate 3 to 4 times more offers than I win.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue comes down to is I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to buy properties logistically that makes sense, right? Like for example, my Drillard property, I'm $40,000 over budget on that property because of things that I should have maybe been a little bit better and calculated,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a lot of things that came up that shouldn't have come up, and it was a fluke of an accident.
Right.
Um, but that $40,000 won't change my refinance. Like obviously I'll lose $40,000 that I could probably got back, but it didn't hurt my bottom line. I'm not gonna lose
Right.
sleep
Because
over
you
that.
protected for that initially on the buy. That's what you're trying to say.
We're over budget. We're over, and it is what it is. But the issue is that, like I said, if I would have bought it for 40 grand more, I would have been crying.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It would have hurt me. Right? My refinance would have made sense. But you make sure you give yourself proper, leeways into buying.
Absolutely. Clip that.
Number nine, Edmonton
Edmonton
will
will
implement
implement.
automated permits.
I
This
like
is
that.
interesting.
I like that a
AI.
lot, actually. We need that more because that's a good way to speed up all this bureaucracy. So what are they saying here? Edmonton is set to become Canada's first municipality to use AI. I love it. In 2025, it'll roll out its auto review program. I wonder how many glitches there'll be
So I
initially,
think
but
there's some places in Ontario starting to think about, like, they're not doing the AI yet, but they're making it easier. So basically, I don't know if it was, I think it was maybe Windsor with Drew Dokins. I could be wrong. I'm trying to go back and
we
think about what I saw, but
way back in the
basically they
day we
said
had cloud permit, and I think we were the first to do that, but it's not AI
I just
driven.
recently did. Yeah, no, no. So what I'm thinking about is that if you were to build one of these type of houses, they give you they basically think about the city having a scrapbook of types of properties you can build.
Hmm.
So you'll have 25 different types of classes of properties and shapes and designs and bedrooms, bathrooms, all that kind of stuff. And if you have one of those 25 ones that they're already working with, it's pretty much an automatic approval for the most part.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I think that's a great idea because, like, if you already know what the lot sizes are, if it's like a 30 by 100, you can build X amount of square footage on that property, right? So then you go to your book and you go, okay, I have a 30 by 100 foot lot. What can I build on this?
It's just
How
a
many
math
units can I
equation.
do?
Yeah.
Boom. It's not a math equation anymore. It's like this house will fit on it.
Yep.
Boom, done. Automatic approval. So number 10. Ooh, this was an interesting one. And I think this actually brings us to maybe actually
Yeah.
this is
We'll
the last
segue it.
one.
We'll segue
And we'll
that.
segue
Yeah.
it. Do you want to lead this one? And
Sure.
lead the next one too.
So we'll do. So basically, um, we kind of figure Poilievre's going to be getting into the government, assuming everyone votes as they say they do. So when Poilievre gets in, he's talking about eliminating the GST for new homes, and so that's one way he's going to try to stimulate the economy and actually drive more homes being built. So right now, you're basically spending a large portion of your funds on just the tax loan, not even the structure itself. Um, I wouldn't say it's nearly 50%, but it's quite substantial. So anything under $1 million, That's a new build. He's going to eliminate the GST for, and so that's I could see that being great because even if it's under $1 million, you could still buy quite a few units for under that price. So
To give you an idea, the average price of a house in Canada right now is about 718,000. I just Googled it. I don't know the exact date, so
nice.
don't quote me on it. Tradingeconomics.com. So thank you for that. They actually, so wowa.ca said December 20th, it was 694, 411. So it'd be close enough. We'll say 723.11, 723, 100. My apologies. Multiplied by 13% is
You're almost saving
$94,000.
100K.
So if your house was 723,000, it would be $94,000, potentially less.
hmm That's actually crazy to think about. So $100,000 of your price is straight tax.
Yeah. So
No wonder we
will
can't build
builders
things.
take advantage of that? Maybe charge you the full amount? They could, but the thing about it is the negotiation game could technically happen because the builders now have, on the average Canadian price of a house, almost $100,000 of play.
I wonder, yeah, because just like with the grocery stores, they said, okay, we're gonna have a GST rebate for a little bit. They didn't really tick the numbers down that far. But if you're saying what the builders are going to do, maybe they won't reduce the price that much, and they'll just pocket the rest, and they'll be none the wiser. But I'm not trying to be pessimistic or anything like that. But it'll be interesting to
That'd be
see. But
awesome if it happened.
yeah, I think this
So
will be a net positive either way. But speaking of Polyev, I'll pull up his tweet here. Windsor got put on the map because Polyev actually called out Drew Dokins. So he said that he wants to work with Windsor specifically, following some of our HAF announcements. And if you guys remember, there was some grants going on saying, hey, if municipalities allow you to build a certain amount of units by right, then we'll give you a certain amount of money to pay for infrastructure and to pay for kind of like some of these costs and for the permitting and whatnot. But Windsor actually said, no, we will not do that. We won't allow those 4 units by right. And so that caught the eye of Polyev because I think in
well,
Windsor, correct me
he
if I'm,
said yes to certain locations, but
yeah.
because it's not a unanimous in every spot, so for example, I think he offered like downtown Walkerville and the west. Once again, don't quote me on the
Mm-hmm.
locations, but pretty much was like, we can't do it in certain spots because the NIMBYs are going to be very, very mad. Like South Windsor's probably not going to want it, right? Certain
Yeah.
areas are not going to
Yeah.
want it. And the federal government, Justin Trudeau, said that's not going to work. Which, you know what? Kudos to Trudeau. I'm not a fan of him by any means. I don't think anyone is at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got a negative rating, probably the lowest ever. However, the thing about it is like sometimes you have to spend money to make money. This guy's been known to spend money and not make any money at all. But in the case of stimulating the real estate market and doing what's best to create affordable housing, there's nothing more affordable than being able to build on existing land where there's already existing
And a structure's already there.
infrastructure,
Yep.
right? And you're not going to be able to have to charge. It'll be a cheap build, and the rent would reflect that because it's not a house, like it's not your own. So it provides
Mm.
potentially keyword affordable housing, and people get confused by what affordable really means, and that's a whole other subject.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that sometime because it was the CMHC rules. If you put affordable housing, you can say it's only a percentage. We won't get into it. You're right. That's a little bit too in the weeds. But so yeah, that's interesting anyhow to see that Windsor's on the map, and then hopefully again that we see that within the end of this year coming into next. So that'll be even 2026. You'll see a lot more activity, and so you'll probably see a lot more ADUs in that case, or a lot more tri or fourplexes on lots as well.
I think it's a great idea. Here's the thing: at the end of the day, people will talk about not having it in their backyard, but everyone wants affordable housing for their loved ones if they already own a property. If they don't own a property, they just want affordable housing in general.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone wants the best of the best for next to nothing. We have to remember that it's not always going to be the case. Some people buy in decent neighborhoods, but here's what I always tell, even as a realtor, I tell my clientele: if you see vacant, buildable like land around you, it's probably going to be developed.
It's gonna
And
be
what
snapped up
is
pretty
going to be
quick.
developed around it? Townhomes and condos, because that's the only, no one wants to build a $1.5 million house anymore. They just don't make any sense to do, right? In certain neighborhoods, they'll do the dynamic, but there'll be spots what they're going to do. Like for example, in LaSalle, by Seven Lakes, there's like a couple okay quality condominium builds,
Yeah.
and then you have like multi-million-dollar houses around it, right? So it's one of those things where you gotta, the pros gotta weigh out the cons, and because you gotta build what makes the most amount of sense, which is the more amount of units on a piece of land you can, right? Which is
Density, density, density.
townhomes. And now, I mean, we're probably close to now doing stacked townhomes. You're gonna probably see those a lot more. They do them in Toronto. We haven't started to do them too much here, but to be able to go into more expensive neighborhoods, they're going to be probably more prominent there now. So I always tell my clientele, hey, if you don't know and there's nothing built around you, like
Mm-hmm.
for example, one of my clients was building, this is like a few years ago, a raised ranch, and he's like, oh, I have farm field behind me. I'm like, yeah, it's farm field
For now.
today, but if it doesn't get built for another 5 years, it might be a condominium behind you, right? It might be townhomes behind you, and you have to reflect that in. I mean, 5 years are different price points. It could be up, down, left, right. But at the end of the day, if you see land that's, once again, because there's two types of land. Like my parents have a townhome, and in front of them, it's actually green space. It can't be built, and there's also like gas lines kind of going through it, so it
Yeah.
literally cannot be built on. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. That's
But
like forever apart.
if you have a
Yeah.
farmer's field beside you, eventually that farmer is going to cash out lots of money,
Yeah.
and
There's some
it
guy
will
and
be a
he's gonna
build.
make a subdivision right there.
Yeah, it's guaranteed.
It's crazy too because now that we're talking about this with the lots and the land, everyone's looking for those lots even now that can be severed. So
Hmm.
because lots specifically in the city and in Tecumseh and LaSalle, they've all, I don't want to say all, but a lot of them have already been snapped up, and so there's not just a lot of vacant lots left. It's more so, and it will definitely trend towards this. Oh, where can we find that corner lot, or where can we find this and sever off like 35-foot lots? It, in actually the city, I was talking to one investor, and the city allowed a triplex on a 30-foot lot in Windsor in kind of like Fort City, and they even let the offsets like the setbacks and everything just have variances on everything. Green space
Of
variance. You
course.
need leave less less. They just want
Oh,
stuff built.
100%.
So
Basically, what you have to do is you work within your numbers, get as close to the numbers as possible, then go to minor variance, be like, oh, well, it's only like a foot.
yeah,
Come
come
on.
on.
They
And they
nine
allow it.
times out of 10, to be honest with you, the city's not even gonna shut you down. Um, I know of a client that had a property, someone built a shed very close to their property, pretty much on the property line.
Hmm.
The bylaw was like, well, they weren't supposed to do that, but it's already there.
It's like, it's too much work to kind of make you tear it down or kind of go
Yeah.
back and fix it up.
We'll let them apply for this permit, and then you'll be technically screwed. So it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, um, they're getting push from everyone. They're getting push from, Doug Ford. They're getting push from Trudeau right now.
Hmm.
Pierre, all these guys going forward, they're pushing, right? So they just want to get stuff built. What's next? Oh, what's this? Huge
This is
mistake.
one you pulled up. Let me represent my screen.
Okay, so what we have here is Amherstburg, which it's a have Tom, have you been downtown Amherstburg lately?
Uh I was during the summertime. I used to because I used to actually live like in Amherstburg, but more in the county,
Oh
so I
yeah.
was there all the time. But compared to when I was there as a kid and now, it's wildly different. There's actually stuff to do now. They closed down the street during the summer. They still got the
It's
classic ice cream,
beautiful.
but they got beautiful
So
condos now too. And
me and my girlfriend were looking, like we were there one day and we're like, it's a beautiful place to own a house. Like we
I
we would
I would,
love
yeah,
that would
same.
be a great place to live. But the issue comes down to, once again, um, when you're looking to buy a house, location is key. So
It's
if
a little
you
far.
live and work in Amherstburg or around that area, you're fine.
Hmm.
But Imagine having to drive every single day into like East Windsor, something like that. You're talking a 40-minute drive each
It's
way.
far,
It
especially if you're
might
on the
not
south
work for
side of
you.
Amherstburg too. It's like
Hmm.
you're toast, especially on Front Road.
There's no
You can
highway threes, right?
no, you got to stick to
You're
70 and you got to
yeah,
yeah, if you speed a little bit, the cops gonna get you.
because that's yeah,
They're tough.
yeah, OPP and Amherstburg, right? No, Amherstburg is now Windsor Police, and then you
Are they
have
really? Oh
OPP. So
man,
you have
I didn't realize they
OPP's
merged.
worse.
Oh geez.
Well, because when Amherstburg went bankrupt in the city, right? I think the Windsor they hired a Windsor police.
Oh,
But anyways, long
makes
story
sense.
short, here we go. $12,000 price increase. Well, what does that mean? Well, think about this, right? We have what's the current fees right now?
It's around 22-ish.
22,522, and it's going to 34,744. Well, once again, beautiful area. It's far out, and the real estate prices reflect that. Amherstburg is a slower area for us to sell. We do a lot of new builds in that area. There's a lot of builders and there's a lot of land to be built, but they tend to sell slower than other areas in the Windsor Essex County,
Hmm.
even at a better price point because it's farther out. There, you don't have that high speed road
Yeah,
to
it's
get you
quieter,
into Windsor,
and you get a bit more
right?
space too. Usually too. You actually have a yard.
So, well, what does that mean? Well, it's $12,000 per property. That's probably going to be tacked on as a builder to your to the buyers of the property, right? It's $12,000 more.
Hmm.
And the prices are already kind of going in a downward trend right now because the market's a little bit slower right now, right? Builders are offering is already offering incentives. That's another thing that they have to price adjust for.
Hmm.
They don't want to take a beating, right? So, and builders will look at that and go, well, if my properties are sitting now, especially if I have to tack on $12,000 more per property, and they're already not selling as quickly, well, maybe we're not going to build phase two, three, four, right? Currently,
Yeah, they'll
until
sit.
things
They'll
get
just wait
addressed.
until the GST comes, and then maybe that'll offset a little bit. Is there anything else in
So
this
that,
article? I'm just curious.
well, higher costs it leads to builders having to reconsider or delay projects, right?
Hmm.
And then especially if they perceive a risk of a basically reduced buyer interest
Oh,
due
you
to
know,
increased prices, it's gonna be reflective of that.
this is interesting too.
So
This guy's commenting. He's saying with the additional $12,000 charge, he's saying maybe those new single family homes are going to go to future areas like Kingsville, LaSalle, and Essex where they don't have that additional tax. So he's saying it might drive out the investments temporarily to other places besides Amherstburg. I don't see that being like too crazy because if you're going to want to live in Amherstburg, you'll
you're
build in
pretty much
Amherstburg
almost
either
at
way.
Windsor development charges, and Windsor's probably even quicker to sell. To be honest with you, land prices are different though. Yeah, but that's it's all relevant.
Yeah, I guess pros and cons for sure. Pros and cons. Do you want to go to the next article here? I'll swap her. Um, this one's about the Devonshire Mall. It's a little bit older article, but I don't know that we really touched on this before.
So, what a great idea, Tom. Do you have anything you want to say about this?
Um, so yeah, so I I like the idea of making this Devonshire Mall more of a destination because like you see in Toronto, like Yorkdale Mall or Eaton Center, like it's a hub. It's a place where people spend money, and the bigger the city gets, I think the more you just need real retail and place for people to shop. And I do hear this a lot. It's like Windsor doesn't have much much going for it. So the more it has to attract people and keep people here rather than going even like shopping in the States or going to London to shop, I think that's great. So I like this idea. I'm not sure exactly what they're planning to do with this, but I know
I'm
they're trying to
curious to
revamp
know.
it and they're
Well,
making it kind of the Toronto style with like the high ceilings and kind of they already remodeled the inside the new food court and rearranged a couple things. So it's I like the direction at least that he's taking.
if
What are
I'm
your
not
thoughts?
mistaken, my mom sent me an article in Toronto is new development going on at Yorkdale,
Hmm.
and and she's like, oh, this is super interesting because there's gonna be a condominium development right on the land of Yorkdale
Oh
Mall.
yeah, I think I remember that too. And they have a the whole thing's gonna be a massive underground parking garage.
Yeah, I didn't look into that much, but I was like, the prices were pretty reasonable. I mean, obviously, once again, dog crate condos, so you got to take that into account. But
Right.
when you got to buy based off a location, good location properties will sell, it just hurts everything else. I like the idea of, for example, a residential condominium projects because you have a lot of land there. The old
They got 18
was it
acres. That's a
yeah,
lot.
and there's that could build a lot of, I would say, like an old age home could go on there. You could have condominium development right there and that will attract a lot of older clientele that because you have Metro at the very anchoring the very far end of it. So you have a grocery store, you have a Shoppers Drug Mart. Then you're going to see professional businesses like, for example, doctors, dentists, all that kind of stuff be either in the Devonshire Mall or
Or
next
just
door in
close.
the in that Roundhouse Plaza. So you're going to see a lot more of that come in there,
Hmm.
which is really really great for the area. Your central location just off of EC Row, you're close to 401, but you have restaurants, bars, all that kind of stuff within that range, right? So I think it's a great idea to do a mixed use. Obviously, um, condominium project makes the most amount of sense because you have the room for above ground or above grade parking. You can do underground if you really wanted to.
Yep.
Um, I don't think you have to do underground because you have so much room to do it. You can do three, maybe four buildings, and that's going 7, 8 stories high. You don't have to go anything crazy.
Hmm.
And they don't have, and the thing about it is this is owned by a REIT and they're not going to sell these off. I don't think I personally wouldn't.
It sounds like
Companies
they're trying to
have
just buy
already
and
started.
hold like long term.
Yeah, I mean, the Weston family, if I'm not mistaken, and the family that owns Canadian Tire, they're like some of the biggest landowners around, and they're actually looking at putting um, condominium projects on our apartment buildings on their land, right? Because they have their grocery and their stores there, right?
It'd be perfect. You just kind of go down from your apartment and you you go down shop, take your groceries up. But they do that all in Toronto, and I love that. It's convenient.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's a great location. And the best part about it is every time apartment building or something goes up, people complain about the location. They're like, "Oh my God, it's in my backyard." There's no residential around there.
Hmm.
It's perfectly fine. You'll actually get zero complaints.
I'd love to see
The
what
only
the city.
complaints you'll get will probably be the price point because someone's always going to be like, "Oh my God, this is unaffordable."
Probably. Probably. There's always someone shouting from the rooftops about that. I'd be curious though to see kind of what the Windsor's kind of their plan. What's like the not the zoning map, but usually they lay out a plan for development for the next kind of 5 to 10 years. I'd like to see if they have any plans or they're encouraging that sort of thing in Devonshire Mall or in the kind of surrounding corridor.
Um, these things tend to be pretty hush behind the scenes. And then once it gets announced, they pretty much break ground almost immediately. So they're pretty much in the room with the city and they're just going back and forth until everything's agreed upon.
Mm, fair enough. Um, yeah, I think that's about that for this article. He just kind of goes into more detail how Sport Check and Mark's Work Warehouse are going to kind of bookend the other side when it comes into play. But speaking of people who don't want to spend money or have people in their backyard, we have another.
Oh, wave of frustration. Windsor
Yeah,
neighborhoods losing battle to stop change.
we have some more people kind of complaining about another development going on in the backyard. So this is in
Let's
South
see if it's
Windsor.
reasonable. I
Yeah.
mean, it could very well be reasonable. Let's take a look here. Windsor neighborhoods are being destroyed, or so some would have us think. It's very interesting to say. Streets lined up with single family homes that left unchanged for decades are suddenly rife with proposals for multi unit housing projects, developments that existing residents fear will obliterate the quiet, close knit communities that they enjoy, threatening homes in which they've invested hard earned dollars to maintain. Residents worry about the one development often mirror the next, lost parking, privacy, more traffic, more noise, increased flooding, decreased property values, and the destruction of neighborhoods' character. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I saw some elderly person in a Windsor South Windsor Facebook group, and they're like, "This isn't the same neighborhood that was 20, 30, 40 years ago."
Hmm.
Well, here's the thing. South Windsor was the new baby, right? Now the new
Yeah, it's the
baby's
crown
LaSalle,
jewel. Yeah.
right? East Win,
It
not
shifts
even
and
East
stuff
Windsor,
gets
like
gentrified as you go.
yeah. So, for example, I mean, that person, if they were like, maybe 60 years prior to this, they would have been saying the same thing about downtown Windsor. Maybe not 60 years, 'cause more than that, probably about
Yeah.
80 years ago. The same thing. Downtown was the best place to
It was
be.
the hub.
Now, South Windsor was like, oh my God, this is a new area, right? And people are like, what do you mean? Downtown was the place to be. Now it's South Windsor. Now it's going to be like LaSalle and
Hmm.
Tecumseh areas, right? So
People really
things start to
resist
move over.
change, you know?
And here's the thing, like once again, I just brought this up earlier. If you live in a middle of the line neighborhood, expect that develop and there's room to develop. Builders are just going to do whatever makes the most amount of sense. For example, condominiums and stock townhomes now probably. So, unless you live in a multi-million dollar neighborhood, it's just realistically like it's if you're gonna expect the worst
Hmm.
in today's market because that's basically what they're gonna build.
What do you think those
When we're
pockets are
complete
that won't change in the
Russell
future?
Woods,
Probably, yeah. I'm thinking Russell Woods, certain areas of LaSalle.
South
Um,
South Windsor, like for example, areas like on the Roseland Golf Course area,
hmm.
those will always be premium spots. However, you might have some of those lots divided into
Subdivided.
McMansions kind of thing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, South Lawn Gardens, which is also known by
Good point.
another Semitic name.
Yeah, that's what I was
Um,
thinking. I didn't want to say like
yeah,
the Jewish corridor,
South
but
Lawn
whatever you want to
Gardens.
call it. Yeah.
So it's a luxury neighborhood, Villa Maria over in South Windsor. So I mean any house that's like, for example, those 1960s 1000, if 1000 square foot
Yeah, those ones
ranch
eventually will
homes,
disappear.
those are all going to be bought up because they're on 50, 60-foot lots.
Hmm.
They're going to be built, they're going to be torn down in the next little bit. Once during the next housing boom, maybe not this housing boom, but maybe
The
a
next
couple
cycle.
housing booms down. Yeah, I could see a lot of them being because here's the thing: they're going for 400, $500,000 now. Just like Bitcoin increasing in price point, eventually
Eventually, the
four
lot will
hundred
be
thousand
worth
is
more
what
than the
the
house
cost
itself.
built of land, right?
Yeah,
So at that point, you'll be able to split into two units, and now you're at two lots, and now you're gonna
and
be
you
able to
build
have when
four
they
on
allow
each or
four
whatever.
units,
Yeah,
potentially 8 units,
yeah.
or they stay on their 60-foot lot and they're gonna be able to build an apartment building, like a small mini apartment, maybe 8 to 10 units.
Mm. I guess yeah. If you can already build 8, yeah, you could probably build heck go
Push
12.
it to
It just
more.
really depends on the height limit at that point.
Mhm.
Um, I guess we're ripping through these. I know we're going long, but there's a lot of articles to do. Um, this one here, we don't really have much to say yet because this can be released on Friday. But Drew Dokins, I'm not sharing the screen. There we go. Drew Dokins
So what we'll
is
do is we'll
tabling a budget
actually
on Friday.
give you a sneak peek about this and then follow up on our All Things REI when we discuss the Windsor numbers. So
Yeah,
basically, we'll just if you
next
want to just
Thursday.
give this a quick read through, Tom, and then we'll follow up with this article again for next week.
Deal. So yeah, basically, Drew Dokins, he's going to talk about the budget for 2025, and so it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they allocate the funds. He already hinted at increasing some of the property tax, right? And that's kind of necessary evil because for the past, to be fair to him and the city of Windsor, for the past kind of decade or so, they've been pretty flat. But with inflation, everything else going on, they have had to increase those numbers. Actually, sorry, 2 decades. You can see there they haven't really increased anything. So I think that's going to be the main thing you see property taxes increasing in this budget. And I think they're going to be allocating a lot more to kind of the downtown and what would you call it, Jeremy? Near the town hall, they have this whole strip that they're kind of trying to build out all the way to the riverfront to kind of make it another walkable hub and
Yeah,
kind
they're
of park
my girlfriend works right by there, by the courthouse there. They're actually working on the skating rink right now.
skating
A
rink.
brand new skating rink.
Yes,
It looks
yeah,
pretty really cool. So that's like the phase one. There's I think 3 phases total. It's gonna be 10 to 15 years to fully build out.
it's a big project.
Um,
So I'm sure they'll
well, actually,
give
what
money
we'll
to
do
that.
is remind us that we have to look into that. And we'll bring that article up as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Um, let's see here. Yeah, like I said, there's not much in here right now. They're just saying that they're preparing for it. So the main thing they touch on here is just the taxes. The mafia always gets paid, right? So
Host never
they'll
loses.
yeah, yeah, it always does. Uh, and again, revitalizing the downtown. So that's another thing I'm interested to see. So in the past, like we've talked about before, they're talking about making the streets safer, giving a dedicated police force, making it brighter. Um, they're going
Have
to
you seen
allocate
the
more
new
funds
lights
to that.
that they've done down there? It looks
I
nice.
have, yeah. I think we should pull up a picture next time too and kind of show off because I don't think people realize how nice it can be. but it's just we need more of it, if you know what I'm saying. And then we'll get to a critical mass where we actually can uh, revitalize that downtown better. But yeah, I think that's all the articles we have for today. we'll, we'll peter out here. What else do we actually technically had that last one about the renewing talks with the housing, this one? Or maybe do you want to save that for Windsor re-up?
We can go through it really quickly. So this is kind
Sure.
of like Windsor Counselor open to renewing HA. So this is similar to what Pierre was talking about with Drew Dilkins.
Mm.
So let's just take a look here. A Windsor Council is open to revisit the House Accelerator Fund program. Council had the chance to reapply for the program in July to access a potential $40 million in base funding. However, the city was told it must allow 4 units on any residential lot
Yeah, it
as
has
of
to be
right,
all or
which you
nothing, they're
mentioned.
saying.
They decided not to apply again. Tecumseh was presented with 3 options. Uh, and I think that Tecumseh just declined, if I'm not mistaken. They just came back and said, we're not going to do it on every single property. So that's going to be an article maybe we'll bring up at the next one.
Sure.
One option would be to permit up to 4 units on a greenfield sites and allow 3 units in existing neighborhoods. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Option 2 would be to permit 3 additional residential units ARU per lot town-wide, but only permit a 4th unit to a
That's
single detached house. And option 3 would be to permit up to 4 units per lot town-wide.
yeah, that one. I feel like maybe we should have read this article beforehand a little bit, but yeah, it seems like Tecumseh is willing to work with these grants, and Windsor still needs that kick in the pants a
Yeah,
little bit.
Tecumseh actually just got the grants too. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll follow up with that for our next week's live and kind of bring it and wrap it all up in a nice bow for you guys.
Yeah, I guess Jeremy, for 2025, do you have any goals they want to put out there in the universe, or
Goals.
any?
So here's the game plan right here.
Yeah.
This is basically what I'm planning on doing. Um, always be in every room. And that's kind of, I mean, figuratively in by speech, because you want to be around every investor you can. You want to learn what they're doing. I want to be as boots on the ground as possible. I want to know what people are doing, regardless of it's East Windsor, LaSalle, Amherstburg. I want to know what's going on, and I want to see how it works. And
Mm,
then if I can take one little thing from that project, because everyone tries to emulate everybody else, but like just stick to your lane, do what you're good at, but learn a little piece that you can add every single time while maintaining your goals, maintaining your efficiency, and go at your own pace. Because there's too many people that will look at, for example, um, to some people I might be doing a lot more than them, and then to me I might be not doing as much compared to some of my friends,
mm,
right? So if we all compare ourselves to somebody else and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, I have some investors that do all their own stuff by themselves using their own money, and I have some investors that are killing it right now with partners, so they're able to buy up more properties at any given time. So you don't know how much of a percentage of they own, right? If you're doing it,
mm,
like for example, myself, I can't compare myself to someone that's investing with other partners because I own 100% of what I do, and they may own up 40 or 50%. It all depends on the breakdown. How much of their capital do they have in it? How much are capital of ownership do they have in that too, as well? So, for me, the big thing would be just to be learning as much as possible around what's going on in Windsor,
mm,
but not just Windsor in general. I want to know what's going on in other major development areas. Like, for example, London would be a good idea too. So if you're a person that invests in Windsor, look at the next best city, like the next biggest city, because they're always a
they're a
year or
step ahead.
two,
Yeah.
a few steps ahead, right? And then if they're doing this here, I remember, for example, um, we were doing these. We were just recently we recently got into turning the basements into ADUs, right? But that was something that was going on for years in London, and well, maybe a few years ago in London, but before that was being done in like Guelph and Toronto areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we knew it was coming, but we just didn't know when. And that's something you can try to stay, a step or two ahead of, what, right? And then not only that, too, by being in all these rooms, some of these investors are going to pass on deals because either A, they don't have enough capital to do it, or B, it's too small, or B, it's too big of a project.
Hmm.
And if you're in those rooms, you may be able to pick up that property.
Absolutely. And I think too, just being in those rooms too, it can be something that's motivating or keeps you also accountable, because if you see people succeeding and excelling and trying their best and achieving their goals, it makes you want to keep up, or or at least when you are comparing yourself, you say, okay, if they can do it, why can't I? Right. So it definitely
To a certain
is.
degree.
Yeah, to a certain degree, you know what I mean, though. But it's like, yeah, I'm not trying to say it with too much hubris, but if it's the mentality, it's like, okay, I see how they're doing it, and you can kind of take a piece and you can apply it to yourself and keep pushing forward. So maybe if you're in those rooms too, you can help each other out, like on a deal. Oh, you know someone that needs this? Perfect. I'm looking. Just like we're always looking to buy deals in Windsor, bring those deals to us, and we're happy to scoop them up.
And Tom, what about yourself? What do you have planned for 2025?
I think it's the word for 2025 is intentionality. Um, I I find a lot of the time I like to split my focus, or not that I like to split my focus, but I have a lot of things always that I'm juggling. But if you have too many things on the go, you can never
You can't.
be super in depth on one thing. And so, just like you were saying about diving into Windsor and being in these rooms, I really like the idea of too of building deeper roots in Windsor and kind of building all things REI, but also being intentional of actually the projects that I am doing and that I plan to do in the future. So only being a bit more picky and choosy as to where I invest and what I invest in, because just like the previous year before that with the one flip, it wasn't the greatest. So I need to be a little bit more particular about what I do and really analyze it and make it crystal clear. And then just as a side too, I want to also increase my income to kind of supplement my engineering so I can one day actually make that leap officially. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
always striving to supplementing my salary with active real estate income, and so that'll be the kind of the secondary goal is what gets me closer to uh, that break even point.
100%.
Yeah,
And you hit something on the head that I want to quickly talk about
yeah,
because you
do it.
mentioned that um your investment and not just you investing in properties, it's you're also investing your time in a lot of these not just properties but projects. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, this is a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I did and it hurt me tremendously was when I started getting heavily into flipping. I did my first flip. We did very, very well on it because obviously the market went up, but I hired out. It was very, very good. We didn't do a lot of our own time and effort and money into it. Um, but project number two, I started doing some renovations myself, right? Try to save a couple bucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while I might have saved a couple bucks, I really didn't know what I was doing. I messed up a few times. We had to retile some properties again, right? That set us back in time, which is also an investment because it's investing in time, my time, which took away from my client's time as a realtor, which lost me more money.
It had
So,
like a cascading effect.
and not only that, so I have to take into account my main job, and that's my main source of income, right? Investing is a at the time was a secondary source of income. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty much my main source because we're doing it at such a level. Um, well, for the longest time, it was like a secondary source of income for me. But what I was doing was I was hurting my main source of income to supplement my secondary source of income, which was not close to my main source.
Mm-hmm.
And then it basically took away from that. But I was also um, burning out a lot more because I was working long hours. After I finished real estate, I would go to these properties, work 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, right? And that's not obtainable at a long period of time. You can't keep doing it. So my recommendation is invest in your A team so that you can focus in on your main source of income, whatever that is.
Mm.
Whether if it's investing, then stay in your investing lane and role, and just make sure you have your team that can handle everything else. And if you're a person that works a 9 to 5 or a whatever hour to hour, make sure you have a good project manager that can handle everything. Or if you're project managing yourself, you do make sure that you time it so that you're not burning yourself out and that you're not taking away from family, friends, children, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of factors
There's a lot of things
as
you'd have to
full as
give up
family, right?
sometimes. You need to
Yeah,
prioritize your
so
time
it's
correctly.
not worth honestly, it's not worth it. Just kind of focusing on your main source of income and your family, and then everything else should just be honest with to be completely honest with you, I've learned at this now. I'm willing to pay a little bit more on my renovations so it's done in an efficient period of time that I can be more hands off. And sure,
Mm-hmm.
I might pay a few $1,000 more, but guess what? It's done and I don't have to worry about it because my time's worth that much money.
I like that. That's a good way. I think that's a great place to close this off today. That was perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys back next week.
Next week
And
it is.
we look forward to the All Things REI. Once again, my name is Jeremy McGraw, and my colleague here is
Tom McCormick. We appreciate you guys, and we'll sign off for tonight. And looking forward to 2025 with you guys. And if you want to connect with us, you have our socials. You have the All Things REI group, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We're here for you. All right.
have a good
Take
night.
care. Bye.
Good job.